Hey everyone, welcome to the Current Case Podcast. We're a group of four friends discussing the latest current events as they apply to our everyday lives. From foreign policy to local events, we cover it all as best we can in a manner not restrained by the bias of the big media corporations. We may not always agree with each other on certain topics, but that is what makes it all the more interesting. Being able to sit down and have a civil conversation on even the most controversial topics is a necessity for a better society.
Hello, and welcome back to the Current Case Podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 10, and today's date is March 9th, 2023.
Hello, everyone. So a couple announcements. First, please remember to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to be notified for upcoming videos. If you're listening on Spotify, please remember to favorite and share as well, and leave comments. Feedback is always helpful, and we want to engage as well in the comments section. We're going to be sure to do that here on out. And tonight, no Cameron, because that fucker's in Florida, so such bullshit. So we do have a smaller crew tonight, just Matthew, Ashton, and myself. However, still should be a pretty good episode. Pretty eventful week overall, so lots of different things we're going to be talking about tonight. So first, getting into it straight away here, I've just been noticing a lot of threats from essentially our enemy countries. All these red lines, the threats they've been making. We've had China this week saying that, hey, if you don't repair ties, of basically saying if the U.S. doesn't calm down, you could risk conflict with us. Of course, we have Russia, who makes it a daily routine to threaten some type of nuclear weaponry every other day. And then Iran, of course, we haven't talked about them too much, but they're claiming they are getting close to completing a nuclear weapon. And then you have North Korea, which actually I don't think we've talked about at all thus far, but they're threatening as usual. Rocket Man can't help himself. However, now it's like his sister who seems to be the one who's kind of taking charge from what I've noticed.
Yeah, I know that part's been something that's actually been kind of going on for quite a while now.
Mm-hmm.
I guess even in a system where one family is running everything, or I was about to say ruining everything, but I guess that's true as well. It seems that there is still some sort of political competition / cutthroat diplomacy going on behind the scenes.
Right. His sister, Azula. I think that's the best comparison.
Yes.
She seems even more insane than Kim is at this point. But his threat, or North Korea's threat this week was if you interrupt or intercept our missile tests, we will respond back harshly, whatever that means. Retaliatory measures will be taken if you intercept our missiles that we test.
Vague threat is vague. I wonder what I'll do if a missile starts venturing towards my territory.
Right. I mean, North Korea, of course, I mean, there's a reason why I feel like we haven't really mentioned them too much, because, I mean, they threaten shit all the time. I feel like I have noticed they've become a little more bolden as of late. I know they've flown missiles over Japan's airspace before, and it has landed near their territory, which is something they hadn't done in the past, or at least semi-recently in the past. I think the last time they did that was like 6 years ago or so. So that was like around 2017 when Trump and Kim were going at it, so who knows what's happening there at the moment. But kind of the big question I have is like all these threats, all these different statements our enemies are making at us. I mean, how seriously do we even take them at this point? Ashton, what are your thoughts?
I think it's best to kind of judge these on a case-by-case basis. North Korea, honestly, I feel really isn't worth our attention at the moment. They've, like you said, they've done this sort of thing all the time in the past. Pretty much just another Tuesday, as far as I'm concerned. Granted, if they do step over the line, so to speak, then yes, we should take effort to address that. But I don't honestly think they're gonna try to start something. They have no real interest to, and they know for certain that if they try to start something, we will be the ones to end it in Pyongyang.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, Ashton. It's like, wake me up when they actually do something. Their threats are, I don't take them seriously anymore. I mean, you'll see them pop up, but it's like, yeah, when you do something, we'll talk about that, or we'll deal with that at that point, but until that day, nah, you guys are just there. The only reason you'd still exist is because of China, let's be honest.
Exactly. Similarly, Russia, we've heard them threaten the N-word multiple times. So
The N-word.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've heard their threats ever since the invasion of Ukraine started back last year.
Mm-hmm.
But given how that invasion seems to have backfired on them, and the fact that they've deployed 90% of their army and their air force to Ukraine and are still losing, I honestly am not too concerned about them either. Any further escalation on their part will only result in their destruction.
Right. I mean, I think their nuclear threats are just that. They're nothing but a bluff. I was reading back yesterday. I was just thinking about the Gulf War, and we know when Iraq invaded Kuwait, we gave Saddam Hussein a time, like, if you do not pull out your troops by January 15th of 1990, we will, and all the UN Security Council has given us the go-ahead to interfere and essentially get you guys out of Kuwait. I don't know, it's like, thinking back to that, I mean, I feel like the only reason we haven't done something similar with Ukraine and Russia is because Russia, of course, threatens its nukes 24/7.
That and Russia has a permanent seat in the UN, which honestly they should be booted out of there at this rate.
Yeah, get them the fuck out.
Still kind of wild how, former Iraqi President Saddam Hussein was awarded the key to Detroit back in 1980 for donations he made to a local church.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh man, Saddam Hussein, what a classic.
Yeah, certainly crazy times back then.
I also have Matt over here sleeping on my bed for whatever reason, wrapped in my Jaguars blanket. What the fuck you doing? Get up. The hell?
Nap.
Get your ass up. I don't know, he wanted to record, not in our usual area either. He wanted to record in my room for some reason.
And we'll cut all this anyway. Fuck it, we ball.
No, we're not cutting shit. We ain't cutting. Nah, we're not cutting. I'm the one who edits. I am the one who edits.
I'm the one who has the final say.
Bitch.
Anyways, kind of getting back on track though. As far as Iran is concerned, that might actually be more of a concern for me if they are actually developing a nuclear weapon. If they are actually on the verge of developing a nuclear weapon.
Why is that?
Well, I think Iran, we all know, is one of the biggest suppliers of global terrorists, especially in the Middle East.
Right.
But my main concern is, what if they decide to start supplying these terror groups with WMDs like their nukes? Obviously, I know they're going to try to keep at least most of their nukes in Iran for their own use if they decide to use them, but still.
Honestly, I'd be more worried about all the missing nukes from the U.S. arsenal. We have a lot of those that just happen to disappear.
Yeah, I mean, we have. But you see Iran as a bigger threat at the moment.
Well, bigger than North Korea and Russia.
I know Iran's been, of course, actively supplying Russia. They tried to deny that, but that got exposed pretty quickly, that they were supplying ammunition and drones.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard before that, it's been kind of a recycling story that they've been close to developing nuclear weapons for, decades now at this point. So you do have to wonder how true it is.
Yeah. That actually kind of reminds me of the F-313. Basically, it was supposedly Iran was trying to develop its own 5th generation stealth fighter, but that was actually turned out to be a hoax. It was basically just a small little drone, and they used, these little low-quality cameras to basically try and make it look like it was legit. But it was not.
Well, maybe they should use ChatGPT to help them out along their way.
Fuck that. Man, what's Cameron's catchphrase?
Zam.
No, not Zam. The other one.
I think
I hate
ChatGPT
the ChatGPT.
I think it sucks.
I think ChatGPT sucks. I'll fill his role tonight. Yeah. So I mean. Let's do a hypothetical scenario. If Iran does develop nuclear weapons, you think Israel's going to attack immediately? What do you think's going to happen if that actually happens? Or would Iran actually use them?
Good questions on all those counts. I'm not too familiar with the exact dealings of what goes on in Iran or Israel. I typically don't pay too much attention to the Middle East. Frankly, that's probably one area of the world where we've spent too much attention in the past this century. But I do know that previously, when Saddam Hussein tried to make it, Saddam actually had the Al Tuwaitha nuclear facility. The Israelis actually tried to launch an airstrike to take down that facility in the 80s during the Iran-Iraq War. And fun fact, Operation Opera, and that's airstrike I mentioned, that supposedly provided the basis for Top Gun Maverick.
Oh shit, really? Oh, good to know. Nice fact.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I know Israel does have some F-35 stealth fighters that it can use to potentially launch another sort of deep strike if it does feel like it should take action to stop this. But whether or not they will, that's a completely separate question and one that I really cannot answer.
Hear that sound? That's the sound of freedom rolling into Iran. I remember back in 2020 when Trump ordered the bombing of that general, and then everyone thought at the beginning of 2020 we were about to go to war with Iran. So the World War III memes were like very,
yes.
were very in tune that day, or those couple of days when that happened. And luckily we avoided that situation. I think Trump made some kind of, I forget what he did, I'll have to look back at it, but Trump avoided it, like made some kind of deal with Iran to avoid that conflict. But we're like, phew, avoided that catastrophe. And then a couple months later, COVID.
Yes. Now here we are with a war in Europe going on again.
Yeah, but I mean, Iran is definitely a wild card, I would say. Out of the 4 countries we're discussing, I think I'd put them probably number 2 of most concern.
As would I, which conveniently brings us on to our number 1 area of concern.
China. So,
Yep.
So what do you think of China's threats then? Do you actually take these seriously, that if we don't improve relations with them, they are risking conflict?
China's kind of weird. I'm just going to put that out there. I've been watching China since like 2016, 2017, back when they started meddling in the South China Sea bullshit. And it's the classic bit of you and the unjust man, right? It's like, meet me in the middle, says the unjust man, as he takes a step backwards. Meet me in the middle. Meet me in the middle. It's just been step by step until now they claim to have everything in the South China Sea.
Right.
They've already built their islands in it. Like, they exist. We can't really do anything about it at this point. And our administration just keeps taking that step forward and forward. So inevitably, I think we will have conflict with them. I think a lot of people like to overhype it, like, oh, this is the time now. Like, this time it's real. I think each time, yes, there's progress, but it's just one step closer to that cliff. And it's hard to predict when that ground is going to give out. But I feel recently that you're really starting to kind of hit the gravel versus the grass on that cliffside.
Right. I mean, I think the whole turning point will be Taiwan in the end. I don't see us coming to random, like starting a war between the two of us for outside of Taiwan.
Yeah, and you pretty much, the two of you pretty much nailed what I was going to say, is that, well, first off, China should really tell itself to improve relations with the outside world before it starts making threats to us.
Yeah.
This seems to be a common habit of the CCP, where they basically accuse everyone else, especially the United States, of doing the thing that they are doing.
So do the Democrats, but that's a different topic.
But yeah, like you said, the flashpoint's definitely going to be Taiwan. I very much doubt that we'll go to war if something happens in, say, Vietnam or near Indonesia. Perhaps the Philippines, since they're a regional ally of the United States. But I think Taiwan's going to be the first step the CCP are going to try and take. But I think the most recent comments of that whole comment that you mentioned of start improving relations or everything will fall off a cliff. And that comment supposedly came from China's new foreign minister, one of the guys at the very top.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely a bit more of a concern for me, seeing as now the guys at the top are starting to act like this.
Right. I saw recently, I think a day ago, that Xi wasn't adding more to his defense sector. He's increasing his defense budget by a lot. So yeah, I saw that Xi is increasing his defense budget by a pretty significant amount. I've noticed they're kind of making internal moves. Have you seen that recently as well?
Not necessarily. Define internal moves.
Like, as I said, increasing the defense budget. I think he said that all private businesses in China should basically pledge their allegiance to Xi.
Well, that is nothing new, actually. They've had the so-called military-civil fusion going on ever since Xi came to power.
He seems to be reinforcing that, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a coincidence with the timing of our pretty deteriorating relations, but
who knows?
Or something more sinister. It's hard to tell for sure, I guess.
Yeah, especially with how erratic a lot of the actions of these dictators tend to be.
Right, they have been. They've definitely grown a lot more erratic over the years, I'd say. With obviously Putin starting this war in Ukraine. I think Iran's pretty insane crackdowns on their own people. China being China.
Yeah. Something else to kind of add on to basically the tipping point of what I expect to see. I expect, given China's currently deteriorating, I guess, status, and the fact that they just got out of the whole zero COVID policy, they're having a demographic crisis that's made worse by an economic crisis. They've been damaging their relations on the international stage by basically trying to point the blame for all their problems on everyone else, including us, especially us. But I think I may have mentioned as much before, but I fully expect that if a war was to happen over Taiwan, it's going to happen probably not so much if or when Xi thinks the PLA is ready, but rather when there's some sort of big crisis going on at home that Xi needs to basically point all the attention away from.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's going to probably start a war over Taiwan to try and divert attention, rally the Chinese people on his side, and...
You banned TikTok. We're starting a war with Taiwan.
Well, probably not that.
Yeah, not that, but
basically if this economic crisis of theirs gets worse...
Which I think it will.
Yeah. They might start marshaling their forces in Fujian, which is the closest province to Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the thing to look for. Petition to institute a no-fly zone over this house while we're recording.
I'll get the stingers.
Anyway, like I was saying, I think the main thing to look for, if there is going to be an imminent invasion of Taiwan, would be if we see another mass of troops, and especially warships and amphibious assault ships gathering in Fujian. That, I feel, is going to be the signal that something's going to happen.
Right.
We saw a similar thing in the lead up to the Ukraine war.
Mm-hmm. That 3-month buildup of the troops.
For a quote-unquote exercise.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the last one they did back in like May 21. I remember that one too. Luckily that one, I think that was a month build up, and then they went back and withdrew to their bases. And then, of course, this one started again. Everyone's like, oh, they're just doing the same thing again. They're bluffing. And
then you saw the medical supplies coming in.
And I was like, yep, it's going to happen.
Yeah. Like, I predict something similar will happen in the run-up to an attack on Taiwan.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, we'll see here. So, I guess it's kind of summing it up in terms of how real we should take these threats, if we should even take them seriously. I mean, North Korea, nah. they don't do shit. They won't do shit, I don't think. Unless China does something, then maybe.
Maybe.
But not until that day comes. Russia is a Russia. They're dealing with their own shit in Ukraine. They can't afford to do or mess anywhere else. The only concern would be if China gives them ammunition at that point. But they're too occupied to do shit anywhere else, I think.
Well, I do know Russians actually still have a contingent based in Syria right now that's assisting Assad in his still ongoing civil war there.
Mm-hmm. Heard they're meeting with Syria and Turkey today. Or sometime soon, so we'll see where that goes. But they're not going to use nukes. No, that's not happening. Iran, you have to watch them. They're a wild card. It could be dangerous. I know we've been talking about China a whole lot, but I feel like they're probably the country to watch the most. Also considering our ties we have with them. And also today we said, we don't want to cut off relations with you, China. Come on. We're trying to, because they're like, you guys are trying to cut off relations. We're like, no, we swear we're not. And it's like, come on, guys. Grow some balls.
Agreed.
Fucking cut off your relation with this, like, bruh, just stop. I've talked about enough at this point. I'm getting sick of depending on China for everything. They will screw us over in the end.
Yeah. Better to cut them loose now than later.
It'll be hard, but we can get by, I think.
Yes. We did so before. We'll do it again.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And speaking of, I want to transition to the economy now. I know, Matt, you've probably been paying attention. Powell met with Jerome Powell, head of the Fed. He met with different members of Congress over the past 2 days, the Treasury Department, just to talk about the state of the economy, what his plan is and stuff. I think the economy is a lot worse than we're made to believe by the president and the public, because Powell, and also, I'm going to say, like, goddamn, how do we elect these people into office? Some of the questions they're asking Jerome Powell are like the most...
Do you create the money?
Do you create money? Is inflation racism? That's basically what they're asking him. They're like, Jerome, inflation's racist, right? How does this affect the minorities?
Does this affect the trout population?
They were the dumbest questions. How do we elect these? Who elects these people? It was both Republicans and Democrats. Like, these were the dumbest fucking questions.
Yeah,
I felt
our economy is pretty bad right now. Rate hikes.
Yep.
So figure our target market probably doesn't have a lot to do with like mortgage rates and stuff, but like new and used car prices and rates. I think it just hit 8% for new cars and a whopping 13.6% on used cars, which means you can get your deal on that 2008 Nissan Altima for 108 months at 24% interest with moderate credit.
Right.
It's like, really? 13% on a car? No thanks.
Yeah, more rate hikes rising gas prices. We're at $3.50 right now. Again.
So, does the rate do anything with inflation?
I mean, what Powell's whole end goal is, I mean, I'm not sure if you agree with it, but he wants to raise because he thinks, or the Fed thinks, our unemployment rate is too low right now. We need more unemployment to bring down inflation because, of course, with less people unemployed, there's going to be less spending. So he wants to raise the unemployment rates up because it's too low. Our economy is basically too hot to support itself right now. He thinks we do that, we'll bring down inflation. That's his whole idea, or the Fed's whole idea.
I mean, in economic theory, this makes sense, but theory to real world oftentimes do not mesh perfectly. Discuss what happens when people lose their jobs.
Right, become unhappy.
I'm talking in the economy.
Yeah, go ahead, explain.
Well, people lose income. Are they going to keep spending at the level they're spending?
And then he doesn't. And that's why he wants to prevent it. He wants to have less spending in the economy.
Exactly, which might temporarily reduce inflation, right? Here's the underlying issue that this fails to get at, in my opinion. Corporate greed. Just because people lose their jobs and spend less doesn't mean that companies want to lower their prices. So if you notice, prices are pretty sticky. Whatever they get to, they tend to stay at, and they don't drop. You don't see McDonald's going like, hey, guess what? We're lowering the prices of our hamburgers. That doesn't happen. It's always, we're increasing the price. You know, you look around, okay, maybe some of the items in that economic basket you consider might decrease, the price of milk, eggs, whatever. I'd argue those are more commodities than corporate prices.
Right.
Do you really think cutting rates is going to impact the price of Jimmy Dean breakfast sausages? Probably not. They're not going to decrease. If anything, they'll just keep going up.
And the plan, this sounds bad on paper, when you just think about it. It's oh, you guys have jobs and are making money? Fuck that. You need to be poor. You need to improve the economy. You said, Powell said, I recognize about 2 million Americans will probably lose their jobs, but it's to slow the economy, which will help inflation or decrease inflation.
But no one wants to work anymore.
It's where does that argument come from? I mean, the unemployment rating, you have to check because you have to see if that actually counts people with having 2 jobs to support themselves. I have a feeling it does count people that have multiple jobs to support themselves. But, I mean, it is true. We do have a very low unemployment rating right now, which the Fed wants to stop. And, I mean, I feel for Jerome. I mean, it's a tough position to be in because it's not much else you can really do here.
Well, how about he puts himself out of a job? Start with him. Take his, $160,000 salary and just be yeah, we need to, reduce the number of people who have jobs. We're gonna make it 45,000. That's slightly more than what most people make. Let's start with you, Jerome. See how you like it. See how this policy really affects you.
Get rid of all the bureaucrats.
Yeah.
Bust up the monopolies. Bust up the corporations.
Jerome, you're the one who said that we have to, slow spending. Let's start with your family.
I mean...
Rules for thee, not for me.
Rules for thee. That is a very true statement. So, it's a tough position for the dude to be in. I'll give him that. It's not an easy decision. I mean, his whole goal is a soft landing, which I've been saying that for about a year or two now, where they could bring down inflation but keep that unemployment rating very low as well, but I don't think that's going to happen at this point with more rate hikes on the line.
The interesting thing is, I will give them credit for this, is they haven't overshot it yet. Usually they rate hikes way too long, and then you get some sort of financial instability. But the fact that they had to pause it and are implementing it once again shows they're at least trying to be careful with it, which I understand. But I think they're missing the forest for the trees.
Right. I mean, they've been doing 0.25 BPS rate hikes pretty recently. Now they're saying they might have to go up to 0.50. And some people are just do a freaking 0.100 BPS rate hike and just get it over with at this point. We'll suffer for a bit, but it'll be ripping off the Band-Aid. And then after that, we'll recover. But it seems like they want to stick to trying to get to that soft landing. But honestly, I'm not sure they have any idea of how to fix the inflation issue we're dealing with right now.
I mean, I just gave a pretty solid fix, but the question is, how do you implement something like that?
Right. I mean, I'm sure...
What, you want the government to come in and be all right, everyone, you have to make no more profit than 15%. That doesn't sound very free market to me.
I mean, what? You showed me something. What? Doesn't Biden have a plan here? What was his proposed plan?
$6.8 trillion budget for new social programs and higher taxes. Great.
On everybody?
Get people out of jobs and increase their taxes. This guy's a fucking genius, Biden. Way to go. Did you dream that one up at nap time too?
Damn. Was it on everybody? Because I heard it was supposed to be people who make above $1 million or have a net worth of up to $1 million
Or more.
or more. Yeah. So check to see if that's on everybody. 'Cause if that's on everybody, that's fucking idiotic. But if it's on people who have a net worth of $1 million or more, I mean, I guess I can see that maybe.
Yeah, increase spending when we're on the fiscal cliff. That's really smart. Let's go ahead and push up that debt ceiling again while we're at it.
What sector does you want to increase spending on?
25% tax aimed at billionaires.
Okay, Bill. Yeah, good luck passing. I mean, it's not a bad idea.
Quadrupling a tax on stock buybacks and renewed his push to roll back Trump's tax cuts for high earners.
I mean, there we go. Tax.
Also, increasing and expanding the tax on Americans earning more than $400,000.
Okay, I'm poor, so it doesn't apply to me.
Well, you signed up to be a school teacher. What do you expect here?
True. I mean, these aren't bad ideas in terms. I mean, this is kind of what we're saying. Tax the wealthy, tax the rich.
Okay, AOC.
Tax the rich, you fuck. I mean, they gotta pay their fair share as well. But the thing is, will it actually pass? I mean, Biden, who's the one funding you in the first place?
That's the tricky part.
Go ahead, Ashton.
That's the tricky part. If your people are always in favor of new laws and regulations until it restricts how they can manipulate things to their advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly would want to see this put into place, but I don't think it'll pass. I just don't. I mean, literally the Democrats and Republicans, it's the billionaire corporations, billionaires in general, who donate to their campaigns every year, so, and who fund them. Are they really...
Here's the problem. I don't know any rich people who actually pay tax. Not because of tax rates or anything else. Everything is inside a corporation of some sort.
Yeah.
It's not high earners that are not paying their fair share of taxes. It's the corporations themselves within America. They're taxing the crap out of small businesses, yet large businesses, they don't have to pay anything. And that's the problem.
How you deal with that is the thing. Fuck. Economics is fucking complex.
Yeah. So many goddamn loopholes for these guys to exploit.
There are tons of loopholes to go around. It's a weird system right now, I would say. No one knows what they're doing, basically. They're just tossed in. They're like, oh, well, try our best.
Why not implement some more taxes on these corporations, actually, for once?
Yeah, but the corporations aren't going to like that. That's kind of what I'm saying. It's like...
Plus, they have the money and resources to hire all the tax lawyers and stuff that they want to find every single loophole within the tax code and exploit it.
Exactly. They have everything they need, so it's like, even if you do try to pass it, good luck. Good luck actually enforcing it.
I feel like I'm gonna need to say it again. We need Theodore Roosevelt back.
Every episode, just slip that in there.
Yes.
I think
it's also amazing how you can't legislate morality either. Like, no matter what you try and do to fix these things, people will do whatever they can to worm their way out of it.
I think human nature sucks.
Just stop trying, Jared. It's not the same.
I can't do it. Nope. We need Cameron back.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So, I mean, shifting back, we'll move on here. It's a tough situation for Powell. I get that. But I'm not sure this plan is it either. Putting people out of a job just to try and lower inflation doesn't seem it, because it's going to affect us. We're the ones being affected by it. As Matt said, maybe they should try more wealthy individuals, but that's not going to happen. It's going to be people like us who are going to be losing their jobs. Oh well, what can you do, I guess. All right, well, last thing here. It's kind of a more niche topic, and also something you could argue it's been going on the past couple of years, not really a recent phenomenon, but you notice like just this cultural virtue signaling shift in a lot of our entertainment, like video games, TV shows, and movies recently.
Yeah, I think that's become obvious to anyone who has even a hint of self-awareness these days.
Right, I remember the Battlefield 5 controversy.
Yeah.
You want to explain what that reveal trailer was like, Ashton?
Yes. Battlefield 5. Jared and I were fans of the Battlefield series ever since 4.
Mm-hmm.
We played through 4, we played through 1, but I was the only one who actually played 5, but that was long after it initially released. The release trailer was abysmal, the short term, hard version. Long version, it was a trailer that looked nothing like the Battlefield that we'd previously known.
Mm-hmm. And of course, a lot of people got upset. I mean, Ash, what did you think of this? Because the main character the main person featured was a woman, an Irish woman with like a bionic arm who's just running around shooting
A crude prosthetic, yeah.
Yeah, and who's just running around like Rambo, just shooting everybody.
Yeah.
And all the people are like, what the fuck? Why are there women in my World War II game?
Yeah. Kind of oversimplifying it, yeah, but still, you weren't going to find a woman in frontline combat role in any Western army in World War II.
Exactly, and we can argue virtue signaling, trying to, I don't even know what they were honestly going for in that trailer. Of course, like, I've noticed these companies, like, or the fanboys, they'll come out and be like, oh, you're just misogynistic, or you're a misogynist. You hate women, you hate, you're a homophobe, you hate gays, you hate this, you hate that, if you don't like this, or whatever.
Just because a small minority of people have the loudest voice does not mean anything of what they're saying is true or correct.
Exactly. Even still, all it takes is a vocal minority to drown out the silent majority. But, yeah, it was a bit... the initial reveal trailer of Battlefield 5 was a shit show, through and through.
Mm-hmm.
Very little, if any, of it made sense. I guess they were trying to encapsulate the chaos that can sometimes ensue with a Battlefield match.
Right.
You remember some of the crazy moments we had playing 4-1.
Right.
Still, I think we can agree it kind of went a bit too far in 5, including some things that would honestly never happen. I think I remember one part of the trailer where a steel hand grenade lands at the guy's feet. He tosses it up. One of the guys tosses it up. The player whose perspective we're seeing shoots the grenade as an enemy plane passes by, detonates the grenade, causes the aircraft to crash.
That's crazy.
Yeah, probably not gonna happen.
No.
And if you fly that low, not just in Battlefield, but in any sort of combat game involving aircraft, if you fly that low, honestly, you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of anything else. So the chances of that happening in any game, not really gonna happen.
I remember the dislike bombs that video trailer got.
Yes.
Now it has no dislikes. Must be a good game.
Yeah. Or it's just YouTube trying to protect people's soft, fragile egos.
Yeah. Of course, another example, just this phenomenon of virtue signaling. You guys played The Last of Us before?
Nope.
Matthew, have you played The Last of Us? The first one is a great game. I always highly recommend it. It's great characters, great story, very emotional. Like everything, also amazing graphics too. Came out in 2013. Like everything you can want in the video game, The Last of Us has. Also really good gameplay. Then The Last of Us Part 2 came out back in 2020, and the shitstorm began. One of the original writers of the first game left, and they introduced these characters that were, I guess you could say, controversial. They killed off the main character, who happened to be a straight white male lead, and had the gay character who his companion take over, and then you had another but shifted back and forth between his killer, who happened to be I'm not sure if she was trans or something, but she was very ripped or whatever. And then when the story was honestly very disastrous, that's its own thing. If you ever watch Angry Joe, just watch a video of The Last of Us 2. That about sums up my opinions on it. But the guy who wrote it, Niall Cuckman, he was these are just misogynistic haters. If you hate this game, you're hating on women. You hang on gays. And it's dude, we're not hating on gay people. We're not hating on women. It's the first game had a gay character, had multiple gay characters. And it's a fantastic game. But you're making a certain personality trait, or you're making a person, let me rephrase, you're making something that's a part of them, their whole personality trait. It's you can be gay, but it's not your whole personality trait, or it shouldn't be your whole personality trait.
Exactly. The first priority anyone should ever have when making this sort of thing, at least tell a decent story before you make anything else.
Right. It's don't go after, don't get your fanboys, I'm talking any game, because I feel this has been happening in TV shows too. Don't get your fanboys, or as a creator yourself, don't attack people or hating on them. Don't call them racist or homophobic or sexist.
And there's actually a similar story when the Battlefield 5 reveal trailer was released. And especially that infamous quote, "If you don't like it, don't buy it." Happy to see a lot of people took that advice.
I know. It's like, yeah, fuck, I won't buy it, then fuck off.
Yeah. Granted, these days, Battlefield 5 actually has gotten better. There were some things that I actually liked about that game. Most notably is the fortification system, where you can dig trenches, build tank traps, sandbag walls, etc., etc. Kind of adds a bit of a counter to destruction in that game, which was always a staple of the Battlefield series.
Right.
It wasn't like Fortnite, where you could basically build anything wherever you want, but at certain points and around key objectives, you could add yourself some more cover, make some more fortifications. And even on some maps, you can actually find some pretty sneaky little stationary weapon spots you could make.
Right.
In the Pacific Theater of Battlefield 5, that was awesome.
But
Sadly, the game got cut to work on the disaster that became 2042.
of course. I know, Matthew, you've been playing Hogwarts Legacy here. Isn't there some controversy surrounding that too? You know, outside the pretty great game. You were telling me about it.
Probably, but at the end of the day, Hogwarts Legacy is probably the best game that's come out in the past 5 years. It's incredible to have a proper single-player game that you don't really need internet, you don't need anything. You can just sit there and go through all the side missions and everything else. I think it's on the same level as like GTA 5 or just some of those other classic single-player games.
And you've ignored the controversy behind it.
Pretty much. Because I haven't seen anything wrong with the game, so.
Yeah, I think I've kept tabs on that. It seems the whole accusations that a lot of these people are making are completely baseless.
What are the accusations exactly?
I forget what it was exactly off the top of my head, but because J.K. Rowling in the past has kind of had these sort of J.K. Rowling's kind of had these sort of, I guess you could say, woke viewpoints recently. I think one of the recent movie series that she kind of greenlit kind of had these. The Adventures of Grunwald, I want to say.
Adventures of Grimwald.
Yeah, I know they had some of that, but I think the whole like J.K. Rowling's whole involvement in Hogwarts Legacy was someone, the developers of the game came up to her and asked her, "Can we do this?" And she basically said, "Yeah, sure, do whatever you want," and then that's it. So I think some people on Reddit, of course, some people on Reddit basically decided to stir up some false controversy, saying that this is a slander against trans, is an offense against trans people and whatnot.
J.K. Rowling's a transphobic person.
No, not that, but I think it's because of I forget what it was, but I forget the exact details. But that's the whole gist of it. Some salty guys on Reddit or some other cesspool of toxicity basically got together and decided to stir up some false controversy for whatever the hell reason there is. They basically tried to turn this into a boycott of the game, and that boycott, from what I can see, completely backfired on them.
Sounds like glad that happened.
Yeah, and because they brought attention to the game, and because a lot of these people tend to give their supposed cause a bad name, more people decided to buy Hogwarts Legacy, and lo and behold.
Look at that. That's a good thing that happened.
Yeah, if anything, I think this false controversy has been perhaps the best ad campaign that the developers never asked for.
I will say, as a user of Reddit, I can confirm it is a big
L
circle.
plus cringe.
It's a pretty big circle jerk. I mean, it's like
Source.
It's a bunch of fuckers who think they know what they're talking about when in reality they don't know shit. It's basically like us on here, but at least we own up to it.
Source.
That we have no idea what we're talking about half the time.
My source is I made it the fuck up.
I made it the fuck up. See, you have to own up to that. Like, if you have no idea what you're talking about, you gotta say you have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I hate people are like, I've looked this up on the internet, and according to my calculations, and they pretend to know what they're talking about. It's like trying to browse
right, but at what point is it just common knowledge?
I know, yeah, that's true. It's like
1 + 1 = 2, and then people like Jared are like, source? It's like, do I really need to find a scientifically reviewed, peer-edited journal stating that 1 + 1 = 2?
Yes.
Of course. The only way to make Jared happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I always browse r/world news. I like reading the comments on there because I mean all that subreddit is just articles posted from around the world. It's not like Redditors posting or anything. I mean, Redditors do post, but they're news articles from just a bunch of random news publications. But reading the comments, they're like, when speaking of Russia, Ukraine, they're like, when that was building up, they're like, no way Russia invades Ukraine because of this, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you don't know shit. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know you were a Russian defense secretary.
So what we've learned is Jared really likes arguing with people online.
I don't argue. I just read comments. I don't argue with people online. Like I said, I don't know shit. I pretend. I lost my words. Basically, I don't know shit. I pretend that I.
Even though you have 2 degrees hanging up on your wall.
Okay, I mean, I know shit about the stuff I study, but I'm not going to pretend I know shit about like the medical field and make up a bunch of bullshit online about it.
Indeed. Even though I'm more in tune with a lot of the more, I guess, military and foreign policy things out there, that doesn't make me a qualified expert.
Right.
Even I make mistakes and I forget some important details.
Exactly. It's like all of a sudden, you're an expert on everything because you use whatever this website. It's like,
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. You're not an expert on this. You don't know shit. Just admit it.
Yeah, it's especially bad in the military enthusiast community. I can tell you that
Yes.
much from experience because,
T90s.
well, I was telling you that earlier, but even you can find this sort of thing in all sorts of corners of the military enthusiast community, whether it be those who idolize Nazi Germany and the Wehrmacht, or those who idolize the Soviet Union and the Red Army, or even those who idolize the so-called fighter plane mafia.
Mm-hmm.
And if we ever want to do a future episode where we dedicate a topic to me dedicating trying to debunk some of the bullshit that John Boyd, Pierce Spray, Mike Sparks, etc., the fighter mafia / reformers put out, I will gladly do that because what you mentioned about a circle jerk earlier,
Yep.
the reformers / fighter plane mafia are the textbook definition of that. And by mentioning Pierce Spray, someone who avidly hates the F-35, you can probably tell where I was going to go with this.
Like, actually.
But I think I'll save that for a different day, because that's fighter plane mafia is a whole nother topic that's worth a whole nother discussion.
The whole Dragster Rants episode right there.
Yeah.
Pretending people know stuff when they don't. That doesn't always anger me, though. But, what were we even talking about? Virtue signaling.
Yeah. But yeah, it kind of reminds me of that whole quote, you can't shoot a hole through the surface of Mars. Proceeds to shoot a hole through the surface of Mars.
Like, you can't do that. It's impossible. Yeah, so
Back to virtue, the whole crisis with the virtue signaling and all that.
It's people just need to stop like highlighting traits of people and making them characters. It's like, yeah, it's cool that you're gay. That's not your personality trait. Hopefully that doesn't get me canceled, but it's like, yeah, cool. You're a person of color. You're white, whatever. It's like, that's cool, but it's not your personality trait. And like companies, our entertainment industry just appeals to that nowadays. It's like, cool. It's like you see like these headlines. Oh, this person is black, is Latino, has been nominated for a position. It's like, yeah, that's awesome, but okay, what's your policies now? But they're like,
What's your point?
It's like, you're Latino. That's your point. It's like, come on, there's got to be more than that than just like your skin color. Got to be more policy. You have a good policy. It's like, yeah, you're gay, okay, that's good, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's like, what real? Aside from those personality traits, so long as you are a decent human being who is able to live and let live, I don't have a problem with, regardless of anything else. I think that's really the philosophy we should all live by.
It's been lost, Ashton, unfortunately. I feel like everything's judged is based on our background and skin color.
I do think that it is good to have some of these other characters get their moment in the limelight, but kind of like what we were saying earlier with like The Last of Us, they need to be part of a good fucking coherent story. They need to actually do something that's commendable if they want to get their attention.
Right, and stop saying, as a creator, stop saying because your character's being hated upon that the people hating upon it are racist.
Yeah, it's also pretty bad in a lot of... have any of you heard of the Rings of Power, that Amazon fan fiction, I guess, that was supposed to be a prelude to the Lord of the Rings?
I have not.
Basically, J.R.R. Tolkien, fantastic guy, made perhaps one of the most successful fantasy universes of all time, The Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
Good series, if any of you are into that sort of thing. Then here comes Amazon buying the rights to that intellectual property, and they decide to make this, from what I can say, basically a fanfic, since it's, I don't think any hardcore Tolkien fans are ever going to consider Rings of Power canon, similarly to how
Star Wars and
Exactly.
Three movies.
And it's pretty much the same thing because it sort of bleeds in this sort of woke culture where you have different, I guess, races swapped into different.
Sub in.
Yeah, even when it doesn't make any sense for them to particularly be there.
Token black guy, token Asian guy, whatever.
Pretty much.
Token gay guy.
Yeah. I'll recommend you some videos after we're done here about that kind of explains it better than I can.
That'll be good to see. But basically, I sum it up here. Forced representation, I don't think. It's not a good thing.
Right.
Subtle representation. I mean, like they're there, like they're who they are, but it's not shoved it down our throats, basically.
Exactly. Just leave us alone. Let us watch whatever the hell we want to watch. And that's good fucking media. Good stories.
Exactly. Give us the good stories. Stop focusing so much on race, sexuality. Stop highlighting like all of that. Just make a good story, and the characters will be who they are, and we'll accept them.
Yeah. Of course, something else that should be noted about this whole problem is that if people continue to push this sort of wokeness, I guess you could say, it's inevitably going to receive a lot of pushback from the opposite side of the spectrum. You're going to have all these sort of, I guess, supremacists who support the exact opposite side going to gain a lot more traction and influence because I think we can all agree that extremism on one side breeds extremism on the other.
Agreed. Completely agree there. And it will. It already has, you could say.
Yeah.
There is a counter woke culture too.
And of course, one could also say that these sort of problems that so-called wokeness has been pondering recently, they're really just small fries in comparison to some of the bigger problems facing our society like now, which, like what we talked about earlier with the economy and the fact that some foreign nations are on the path to war with us.
Right.
It's distracting us a lot of them from that.
From, the real issues. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, well, I think you guys ready to wrap things up today?
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us this episode. The next episode, we will have Cameron back. Hopefully, we'll have a guest star as well. Again, please remember to leave a like, subscribe. Please share it with 2 of your friends. We're trying to gain a larger audience as we wrap up this season. We will see you in the next episode.